how you even got to the point of kind of being an influencer, realizing that making content online, doing video could be impactful, could allow you to have a voice, and could allow you to be in this position where you're extremely empowered. I would love to learn a little bit about what got you here. Like, what made you Rob Dial, the guy on Facebook? You know what I mean?
So, all right. So I have kind of an interesting story. So you're from Canada, so I don't know if you know what Cutco is. Have you heard of Cutco? So I sold Cutco knives. Yeah. So I sold Cutco knives. I started when I was 19. And so to even go before then, I'll kind of give you my life story to give you an idea of why I do what I do. So my father was an alcoholic. My parents got divorced when I was 9. My father passed away when I was 15 from being an alcoholic. And so we were poor. I never had any, therapy or anything like that. And then when I was 19, I got into Cutco, and they really preach. And for everyone who doesn't know, Cutco is just it's a sales company where you sell knives in people's houses. Yeah. But they really are hardcore on growth and personal development. And I don't even know if I read an entire book before I was 19. And I got in there at 19 and realized that if I worked on myself, I could be my own therapist in a way. I looked at it and in my head, I was self-aware enough to go, all right, my father was an alcoholic. I have a bunch of crap I probably have to deal with. And I'm probably screwed up in some ways. I've never been to a therapist. Let me see if I can figure out a way to overcome these things that are holding me back. So I became super obsessed with personal development. Well, then by the time I was 20, within less than a year of being at the company, I was promoted to be an assistant manager. So that meant I ran interviews, I ran trainings, and these trainings were 17-hour trainings where you're in front of people. And so what happened was I started realizing how I was improving. And then when I would run team meetings and I would be in front of people, I would then teach this to other people. And so I'm 20 years old, I'm teaching people how I personally have overcome I've personally overcome lots of things that were holding me back, and I started teaching this to people. Well, then when I was 24, I had trained over 2,000 sales reps, interviewed over 6,000 people. Wow. So when I left, I went and did corporate sales and training and all of those. But by the time I was about 27, 28, I was making a ton of money, but I was completely unfulfilled. And the reason why I was unfulfilled was because I wasn't teaching people anymore. And I realized that the thing that I was best at in this world was taking very complex things and teaching it to people to make it very basic so anybody can understand it. And then over that time, I had even more personal development, more growth, more crap that I had gone through. There was a point in time where for 2 months, I literally had nothing. I lived in a house and lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, had books on the floor and a mattress, and that was it. And for 2 months, I lived off of Walmart pasta. That was the only thing that I actually ate for 2 months because it was the cheapest thing. It was 88 cents for a box of pasta, $1.88 for the pasta sauce. Wow. And so I had gone from literally pretty much rock bottom to making well over 6 figures multiple times, was completely unfulfilled with it, and I thought to myself, the one thing that I miss teaching people. And what happened was I was inside of Jason's Deli, which is like, I don't know, do you guys have Jason's Deli in Canada?
We do
so it's like a chain of just okay delis. Yeah. And I was there with my girlfriend, and everybody looked like zombies. Like everybody looked like they were just overweight, going through life. One person I remember was yelling at their kids to the side, and it was just like, I hit it like, it was like a fever pitch where I was talking to my girlfriend. I said, I'm just gonna do a podcast. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I feel like I've been able to personally overcome a lot of stuff with things that I've learned about the way that I think about the world and just the stuff that I've learned about mindset, and I feel obligated to teach it to people. So I started the podcast, got really hardcore at learning how to market the podcast, did over 1 million downloads in its first year, and then I realized as people started asking me what I do, because I quit my job within 5 months of starting the podcast. They're like, so what do you do? And I was like, I have a podcast. And some people were like, oh, that's cool. And then some people said, oh, I don't even know what a podcast is. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to have the biggest reach that I possibly can, help as many people as possible, podcasting is not the only way to do it. And so I looked at it and I said, all right, we got Facebook, we got Instagram, we got YouTube. Those are the 3 biggest places I could go on to. I'll be on all 3 of them. But YouTube, it's kind of hard to share a link, and if you share a link, there's a good chance that only you share it one person to another in a text message or an email. Yep. Instagram's super hard to send unless you want to just DM somebody something that you like. Yeah. Facebook, if I see something I like, I hit the share button, and everybody has the opportunity that I'm friends with to see it. And so I thought, okay, this is about a year, a little bit what are we at? About a year and a half ago is when I really decided, okay, I'm gonna go hardcore on this Facebook thing. And if somebody wants to go back and look at my Facebook videos, they were absolute crap. Like they were so bad. I was using my 4-year-old my 4-year-old phone camera, old school Samsung. And I mean, now that I know everything that I know about it, like, you know, the formatting was wrong. It looked like crap. It was literally just like, it's probably 720p, like it was terrible. But it slowly started to grow, and it started to grow, and I started pushing it out there to more people. And then I started getting better. I started upgrading my equipment. I started, you know, really investing into it. And it got to a point within about 6 months, I was at about 50,000 people. And I always tell people it's a little bit incremental growth, like it's slow. And then there's a tipping point where it just like, I always say, like, if you take this cup, right? Yeah. And you just add a drop, eventually it's gonna get to the point where if you just go like this, the whole thing's gonna just flood out. And I got to that point where I put up one video that hit and it got 46 million views. And right after that, it was just like, boom, everything started going viral, things started taking off, I started getting better, and then.
So it was just that one video, that one moment, like.
Yeah.
Like, how many videos would you say you made before you hit that moment? How long were you in the game before?
Honestly, probably 75 videos. Like the one thing I'm good at is I can make a lot of content. I have, you know, at this point, in less than 3 years, over 425 episodes of my podcast, and those are solo podcasts.
Yeah.
So like I can do content. But it got to the point where it was just like one video, the right editing, everything hit. It was the right time. It just blew up, and then from there it went from, you know, within a year, I went from 50,000 to now I'm at. It hasn't even been a year since that video went viral. It was in July of last year, so we're looking at 10 months. I went from 50,000 people to about 550,000 right now. So I've grown 500,000 people in the past 10 months now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so now it's just like that's the goal, is to continue to put out content that help people and shift their perspective. Because I think that with the news, man, there's a lot of negativity that goes out there, and all I'm trying to do is make people think differently than the news makes them think, right? The news is so negative. I'm trying to make people realize it's not as bad as they think. It's actually better than it's ever been. And you know, within the past 12 months, my Facebook has gotten 550 million impressions. And so that's almost twice the population of the United States. And that was where it like clicked to me of, holy crap, I'm actually making a difference, because that many people saw it.
I mean, you can definitely make a difference, in my opinion, from the perspective of putting out content that really resonates with people, that is incredibly empowering. And yet, what I think people are disillusioned with, I think there's tons of people watching this right now and saying, how do I get 500,000 followers?
Yeah.
And I think that's the first bad question that they're asking.
Right. Is,
you told the story, but you didn't think, how am I going to get a bunch of followers?
Yeah.
You didn't think, how am I going to make myself grow? I mean, yeah, you had the mindset of saying, okay, well, if it grows, then I'll reach more people, and my mission will be that it will inform and help and teach more people.
Right.
But that wasn't the crux of what motivated you in the beginning.
Right.
And that's where I think so many people who are trying to be influencers are actually dropping the ball.
Right.
It's not about the numbers, it's not about how many people are paying attention, it's about how much emotion did you evoke in those people.
Right.
Because I can imagine, and I actually know the video that went viral for you, I can imagine that at the end of the day, it was actually a video that evoked emotion, it was thought-provoking and made people think, and it was decently well-produced. It's more than the, you know, I agree that it's not just a 720p camera. It's not to say that people shouldn't start with what they have.
Right.
And if they're watching this, they have it.
Yeah.
Then the reality is, it's about focusing on value first.
Right.
I think that's what influence is if you're going to have influence, you don't start by having influence. You don't become an influencer and then your first video goes viral and now all of a sudden you're an influencer. It's not like traditional education either. You don't just kind of go out, get a diploma, and now you can be the job. Even though I believe traditional education doesn't even prepare you for that.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
I hate traditional education.
Exactly.
I'm a college dropout because I hated it so much.
I did drop out only because my parents would have murdered me.
Really?
My Italian background says that like it was like the thing that I just could not do.
Yeah.
But the day that I graduated from university, personally, I literally on the back of my final exam like on the blank side of like the paper, wrote out kind of this download of a poem, which is now my personal manifesto. I don't really share it that much, although I should, and I will. But I wrote this poem that says, basically, eventually explained that I would build a school I wish I could have gone to, both physically and digitally.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that the education system, and really just even the notification nation that is the world of social media, has processed us to believe that if we do this thing, we get this exact result.
Yeah.
Right? If I get this notification, I get this dopamine hit. That's how the world is being interacted with on a day-to-day basis for many people. Building a career, actually being an influencer, actually having and growing a YouTube channel and an Instagram account isn't that easy, and it's not that hard. But I have my answer as to what I would give as an advice to somebody who's starting out or doing something like that.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's like watching this, says, you know what, I want to be the next Casey Neistat, I want to be the next Prince E8, I want to be the next Rob Dial. Yeah. What does that look like?
So here's the thing, and you said something about, creating something that evokes emotion. I really realized where things really shifted for me was that for what I do, it was always at first it was, how can I make a video that's going to go viral? What's going to go viral? What's going to go viral? What's going to go viral? And at one point in time, I was actually meditating and I realized, oh, I'm going the wrong direction. And so the destination is virality,
yes,
right? And so I was right here, destination is virality, and I'm saying, okay, what's going to go viral? What's going to go viral? What's going to go viral? And then I thought to myself, if I were sitting down with a friend that really needed advice, what would I say to them?
That's the best advice.
And so really what it turned into, instead of how can it go viral, turned into, and this is what I journal every morning, is what do people need to hear? And so the destination is still the same,
yes,
but instead of what will go viral, it's what do people need to hear? And what happens is it's very authentic. So the answer is, if someone's trying to start something, is they need to be authentically themselves, right? Like we did an interview last night with somebody, and I could tell that he was authentically himself the entire time. Yep. There's some people where the camera turns on and they're a different personality, right? And I will never be that person because of the fact that I feel like in a place where everything's so highly produced and people are seeing that all the time, I think that they're starved for authenticity, and when something authentic comes out is when it really hits with people, and when it hits with people is when it goes viral. So it still goes viral, but the only difference is the route to get there is just be authentic and act as if you're trying to talk to someone that you love.
And the growth of the biggest, there's a reason why Snapchat was taking over, and then Instagram Stories comes in and become, kind of trolls Snapchat in a way.
Yeah.
But the reality is just because that content wasn't produced.
Right.
All of that content was just like, hey, here's me in the moment, here's what I feel, 15-second download, and people became it. What's funny, what I love about Instagram Stories is actually teaching people how to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
Realizing quick little 15-second clips snipped together in a day is a great way of practicing and exercising that muscle in a way that actually matters.
Yeah. It's like a small vlog that doesn't require any production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's the best part of the lack of production, because look, we have 3 cameras rolling right here.
Yeah.
And this takes time. There's a lot of energy and time that we have to put into this.
A lot of money too.
A lot of money. There's a lot of product. We have multiple mics and all these things. You have the tripods. These things add up.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a barrier to entry that, somebody who's watching this from India, or somebody who's watching this in another country, or somebody who's watching this in America is like, I don't have that camera.
Yeah.
So I can't start.
Right.
I can't be the influencer.
Right.
Because they're seeing and they're looking at the influencer at the highest of levels. They're seeing Jason Silva's, amazing produced, test tube mind vitamins or whatever it is, or whatever it's called, the show. That component of, or Shasava, that's it. That component of making those highly produced videos isn't where it starts.
Yeah.
If I even look back at my own videos, and I've been a professional videographer for a few years now, I even look back at videos I made a month ago, and I'm like, that's not great.
Yeah.
And I see the progression. I see what it's like to kind of chase after that. Now, for me, I also went through the same journey. How do I make it more viral? Yeah. How does it become bigger? Yeah. I think it's a natural tendency that probably anybody who's starting off in the influencer game and looking to do this probably has some level of that vanity metric. What's a moment that has happened to you where somebody's reached out to you online or saw one of your videos or run into you in the street, which is, ironically, Darren Atkins behind the camera here literally ran into you on the street.
Yeah.
And we had spoken your name earlier that day because we were talking to Travis.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious to see how that happens. But tell me the moments that this actually turns real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, beyond like the numbers, because man, I forget. Like we have 500,000 followers on Superhero Academy. I forget that affects people. That people see this stuff.
Right.
So tell me about that.
So it's hard because you get wrapped up in just looking at numbers, and it's hard. You sometimes forget that those numbers are faces, is really what they are. So my girlfriend and I we traveled for the last 6 months of the year last year. And the very first month we were in Florence, Italy. This is probably out of all of the stories, this one's the craziest. And in Florence, it's all leather shops. So it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leather shops. So you go in, you see it, or you leave. Hundreds, go into this one, you leave. They go into this one, you leave. It's all the time. And so we walked in this one, and we're looking at this, and it's at 50% off, 50% off. Salida, all of this place, 50% off. And so I asked the lady, I was like, is everything 50% off? And she goes, yeah, everything's 50% off. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then we get outside, and we're literally just got outside of the door of the place. And she's like, excuse me. And I don't, sometimes they try to hustle you, like 70% off, you know, everything's 50, now we'll give you 70.
She was trying to sell you.
Right,
further.
she got super nervous, and she's Italian, and she goes, oh, and she 8 times in a row, she goes, oh, Mamma Mia. And I was like, oh shit, this is like, she actually said Mamma Mia, like that's not like a joke they say on
They do, they totally
she's like,
do.
oh, Mamma Mia, she kept shaking my hand, and my girlfriend's like, what the hell's going on right now? And she goes, have you ever heard of Rob Dial? And I was like, yeah, I am Rob Dial. And she goes, oh, Mamma Mia. And I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And I never internationally met somebody. Like I've met people locally that have, seen my videos and stuff. Yeah, friends of friends that have, lots of them. And but this is Italy. This is all the way across on the other side of the world. And she goes, oh, I love your stuff. She goes, I had a webinar one day. She got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, her time, to watch my webinar. And I have one video that was called Be Happy for No Reason. Right? Like I understand like there's a lot of stuff that happened that's bad in Syria and all these things, but if someone's watching this, they have more to be thankful for than they possibly realize. They have food, water, shelter, clothing, they have the internet, they have a phone,
Wi-Fi access,
something. Like they have way more than the average, than they need, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
And it was about that, like be happy for no reason. And she said, I've always been kind of a negative person, but I've started to be a lot more positive after watching your videos. And I remember I was having a really bad day, and I was walking to work, and I was walking across Ponte Vecchio, which is one of the bridges, the famous bridge that's there. And I was having such a bad day, and I thought to myself, well, Rob says be happy for no reason. What do I have to be grateful for? And she said she stopped in the middle of the bridge, and she like looked, and Ponte Vecchio's beautiful. Stunning. Like you're surrounded by mountains, and you get to see the city.
Been there, check it out.
It's amazing. And she said that she looked up, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful day out. There's kayakers. There's all of these tourists. I live in a place that's so beautiful that thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people come every single year just to visit. And here I am thinking about all of the bad stuff or the things that I'm worried about that could happen in the future. And she's like, and since that like clicked in my head, I've been having such better days. And I was like, holy crap, because in my head, I look at that video and I think it only got like 50,000, 100,000 views maybe, which is, on the lower end for me at this point. So in my head, I could have been like, that video wasn't as good as some of my other ones. But there was somebody whose life was affected by it and had a mindset shift through it. And so that was when it like really clicked of like, holy crap, like you're actually doing something. Yeah. There's really people's, ears that are behind this that are listening.
I love to say that we forget that, because sometimes when we make these videos, we understand that a lot of people are going to see them. And so sometimes we can lose, and I lose my own perspective on like, I'm speaking to the masses, right? And I'm like thinking about that in that way. But the truth is that when somebody pulls out their phone, they're looking at their phone directly themselves. Yeah. It's one person absorbing it. Even if they're watching it with a group of people, they're still watching it as an individual. Yeah. And to remember that the numbers represent people that are out there in the world being motivated and feeling the emotions of whatever it is that you're authentically expressing has a real powerful impact. Now, you mentioned travel. You mentioned traveling for 6 months out of the year. I would assume that means you're a digital nomad, aka you're still working while doing that.
I literally leave, and my flight leaves in 5 hours to go to Argentina.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. I know that. So realistically, you have the capacity to work from the road.
Right.
I'm on the road right now. Austin, Texas behind us, ladies and gentlemen, from Montreal, Canada. But the idea of being on the road has its glory. It has its problems. Trying to find good Wi-Fi, where you're going to ground down, like what's your routine, what time zone am I in, like all of those things. But talk to me about that. Talk to me a little bit about what is it like to be on the road? What is it like to travel? You know, I think a lot of people want to be digital nomads. They want to be influencers with impact. What is it like to be on the road? Is it more glorified than you think? Like, do you want to spend more time on the road? Like, what are you thinking?
I don't think it's over glorified. I think it's amazing. And I'm actually going to get this. I'm going to ask Garrett to put some of this on my Instagram stories, just because. Yeah, let's do it. You know, that's what we do. That's what.
See, we're making the content while doing making content.
This is so meta right now. We're just content on content on content. It's already up, I think. Is that good?
You want live or do you want?
No, you can just hit it. Just some stories. Yeah. So I don't think it's over glorified. I think that traveling is amazing. So personally, like, the first time I ever went out of the country, I was like, this is it. I'm going to do this a lot. And my only goal, I actually have been journaling for the past I started journaling in 2007. So it's 11 years now, right? And I try to journal every single morning. And in my journal, it said, I want to create a job where I don't have to be in a specific location. And this is before like nomad came out, like digital nomad was not a thing at that point, right? People weren't making that much money online. And so I thought to myself, I need to create a business where I make enough money to travel 6 months of the year and then work for 6 months of the year, or I need to figure something out. And so my whole thing is that I live by the phrase, the world is like a book, and if you don't travel, you're only reading one page over and over again. And so number one, I love to read books in the first place. So I feel like if I don't go to all of these places, there's pages I'm not reading. And so is it hard to be a digital nomad? Sometimes, yes. Like for instance, a lot of my sales come off of webinars. And I was only in 6 months able to run 2 webinars. Normally I run a webinar every other week, right? And so my business took a little bit of a hit in that. So then here's what's good about it though, is then it made me think, okay, how can I get these sales without doing webinars? So I actually became a better marketer.
How do you become evergreen?
Yeah, and more authentic in the way that I had to market it in order to get that. So then I was like, how can I get more people? How can I? And so what's crazy is that my business in those 6 months grew by 300%, and my business was already killing it before I left. And that's the amazing thing about it, is that it forced me to become a better marketer. But then what happened is, and my best friend makes fun of me because I used to be the hardest working person ever. Like I worked 120 hours a week every single week for 2 years. When I had my own office with Cutco, like that's all I did. I worked, and that was it. That was my thing. I took pride in being that person that you could not outwork me.
The Gary V hustle, like
for sure.
Go grind, you know, like you're soft, all that, like literally Gary V's message wrapped in one.
That was me before hustle was cool and being an entrepreneur was cool, right? And so now my joke with my friend is that I need to find somebody to do more of my something so I can do more nothings. And that is, it's made me become a better trainer of people that I hire, and it's made me become a better delegator of things. And so my thing that I know is that my genius zone, everybody has a zone of genius, my genius zone is creating content, and that's it. So if I could stay in my genius zone as much as possible and hire people who are good at doing things, a social media marketer, if I can hire a marketing guy, if I can hire all of these different things, and virtual assistants and interns and all these people, and put them all in place, videographers, editors, I have these teams of people, then what's crazy is a lot of people it's hard for them to delegate because they feel like they could do better. But what happens is you realize you start putting people in place and they start doing better than you could do, or they're pretty close to it. And your business starts to grow because of it, because you're staying just in your zone of genius. But that being said, I got to the point where I was only working a couple hours a day. And then it got to the point where I was only working like a few hours a week and being able to travel and experience all these things. And it's like the dream that everybody wants. It took years to get there, and it took a lot of, like late nights. My girlfriend had never dated an entrepreneur before, and she's like, can you just come to bed? And I was like, I have stuff I have to do. Right? Totally. And so it was like a lot of work, And then it was able to come down, and I was able to actually work less, but my business would grow because I put the right people in place.
Well, I mean, CT and I had this conversation literally last night, right after you left, and we did this thing with Jamie Wheel. We had like a big conversation about working in the business and working on the business.
Yeah.
There's a difference between the two. And for a while, you have to work in the business.
For
you
sure.
have to put in the hours and get trained, and you have to gain the experience, and you have to do the work. Like, you have to learn how to make the video.
Yeah.
If you're going to train somebody, even if you're going to hire them as a VA, you have to know what to do.
Yep.
You essentially have to become a mentor.
Right.
And if you're going to become a mentor, you have to become a master to some degree. You don't have to be the best in the world, but you definitely have to get to a certain level in which you understand what is happening.
Yep.
You can't just start training people after your 4th video. You just start training them after your 75th, 100th, whatever. You know what I mean?
If somebody goes to my YouTube, it's 224 videos are up on my YouTube right now.
There you go. Yeah. I've personally edited at least 500 videos. I was thinking about it this morning. And most of them weren't for myself.
Yeah.
But the idea of where I'm at now, what I'm doing now, what I'm creating now, is I'm taking that genius and I'm saying, hey, here's how you can be this genius too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm we're planning this trip in Croatia, for example, or whatever. Like, we are literally trying to empower people to learn the things that they need to do.
Yeah.
But more importantly, understand that it's not just going to happen in a single trip or a single video, but to understand the habits, the patterns that you can put in place to become that thing in the first place. And then eventually, the second tier to that, or the next tier to that, is once you've done it and you've made it and you start to like kind of live off of it and be self-empowered from it, then the next thing is, how do you systematize? How do you like remove yourself out of the business?
For sure.
And
that's
like,
the hardest part for everybody.
Yeah, well, it's why like 4-Hour Workweek becomes a bestseller.
Right.
Because every entrepreneur out there was like, yes, I want that 4-Hour Workweek.
Yep.
And I love that you have moved to the dedication of actually doing that.
Right.
Of actually saying, I do need to become the 4-Hour Workweek model, but I'm going to have to do it slowly, and I'm going to have to do it by working 120 hours a week first to get there.
Yep.
And that, I'm like, if I'm really honest myself, I probably still work the 120 hours a week.
Yeah.
The difference is, the reason for that is because I'm doing it on like 3 fronts. I'm starting a farm, which is retarded sometimes. Like, it's so, and I'll take that back. It's really difficult. It's one of the hardest startup businesses on the planet, I think. But it really requires a lot of energy and a lot of capital. I'm starting a marketing agency, and the guys, the wizards behind the curtain here, who are literally behind the curtain right now, we're kind of amping that up and doing a lot with amazing people. And the interesting component of where I'm at now is, and now I have to stay in my zone of genius. Right. And that's super difficult. How do you discern, like, how do you discern 2 things? I love to say, if I'm not a genius at it, I shouldn't do it. But sometimes the other half of the equation I start thinking is, but don't let good be the enemy of great. Yeah. Right? Sometimes if I'm good at it, I should just do it. And so how do you know whether or not this is the thing you should do versus the thing you should outsource or give to a VA or hire or whatever? So,
well, here's the thing. One thing that you said is it does require training in the right way. So one of the things that people fail at the most, I've been coaching entrepreneurs for 10 years now, and one of the things they fail at the most is when they do finally, delegation is the hardest thing from going from one person to multiple people, and that's where most businesses fail. Yep. And that step is hard to take. The next step on top of that is teaching them how to do it so well that you don't have to keep coming back and teaching them. So I'll give you a perfect example. I just hired a brand new editor, and we had a 3-minute and 30-second video that he sent over to me, and it looked good, but it could have been better. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and download this video, because he lives in San Antonio. I'm gonna download this video, and I'm gonna chop it up myself. And I chopped it up myself, and I literally sent him an email and said, words should pop here. These words should pop. This is how it should pop. We had a phone call yesterday.
Because you're also teaching psychology. You're teaching something different than editing. Right. You're teaching the algorithm. Right. The first 3 seconds being a pop. For sure.
Yep. Yeah, the first 30 seconds of the video we chopped off. So it's 21 seconds of video chopped off because of the fact that it wouldn't have pulled me in if I was watching. If someone's scrolling, it wouldn't pull him in. He doesn't know that whole thing yet because he's a new editor. I mean, he's been doing editing for a long time, but he's never done viral.
Doing it for social media.
Right, he's never done viral social media editing. So I chopped it up myself, took time to do it, Sent him an email, these words should pop, this is how it should look. We had a phone call, that's how it was. We literally just had a phone call like 30 minutes ago of this is how it's supposed to be. He's sending me another rough draft part 2, which should be in my inbox right now. And then I'll look at it and give him, and so it's gonna take a lot of time to get him right, but when he's right, I won't have to give him any more feedback. That's where most people make the mistake is they go, well, I just hired this new editor, I'll let him do it. And then it comes out like crap and they don't get the results that they want. And the reason why is because they did not put a lot of time in the front end training them.
Yes.
And it's all screwed up. And so I think that's the thing that people need to realize is like, editing is not my zone of genius.
Yeah.
I know how to do it decently well, enough, and I know what a video should look like and exactly the whole algorithm of how, viral videos come out.
Yeah.
But I still had to take hours and hours and hours to teach this guy all of the new things. But once he's set, I don't have to send these emails anymore. And so it takes a few hours in the front end versus hours and hours and hours and hours on the back end for the next few months.
I personally believe the number one thing that people should invest in, honestly, beyond college or anything else, is mentorship.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, go and find somebody who is doing it, who is succeeding at it, who's getting paid to do it, and then follow their trail of breadcrumbs. And if they have a mentorship scenario, if you can hire them as a coach, or if you can go to one of their events, or if you can go to a mentorship scenario, that's like the thing. And
I think you should hire somebody before you should do anything else. That's the thing. Like when we're talking about traditional education, when we talk about traditional education, I think that traditional education is crap. Like I think that it's when I was over in Italy for 3 months last year, I realized that the reason why these people were such masters at what they did was not because of the fact they went to school for it. It was because they were apprenticed under someone who was already great and they learned from them. And so I always say to people, if you pay somebody to work for them or work for free, that's less than it's going to cost you to spend $40,000 on a college education.
Absolutely.
And so the thing about it is I don't know how I literally don't know how I was wise enough to actually hire somebody when I was 19. But when I was 19 years old, I paid $350 a month for rent, but I paid $500 a month to have a mentor that I had a 30-minute call per week for 2 years, and I paid him $500 a month. So I literally put on a credit card.
You mentioned who that mentor was yesterday.
Yeah, Hal Elrod. Hal Elrod and his best friend John Berghoff.
Which is like a steal of a deal if you could get him as a mentor at $500.
It would cost you a lot more than $500 a month right now if you wanted to. He doesn't even do it. He doesn't need to.
He doesn't. Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the thing where I got lucky in that sense, but I was lucky in this. I was most lucky because I decided to do it.
I don't exactly. I want to remove the fact that you got lucky. I don't think you got lucky. I think you were wise enough and smart enough to know that you should invest in finding a mentor.
And here's what happened though.
When you learned for Cutco, and you did all those things, you were essentially learning from people who had done it before, who had sold knives before, who were teaching you the ropes. Eventually you rise to the ranks where you're teaching people.
Right.
And once you're able to do that, that's when your voice has been established.
Right.
Most people, even when they want to become an influencer, have to determine what their voice is to begin with. There's so many steps to becoming an influencer, and they don't all have to do with what camera settings or what camera we're using.
Right.
And that seems to be a very popular question on YouTubers, how popular are YouTubers? Yeah. But how much money are you making? Can I make a living off of this? Those are all the questions I get all the time. What I'll say is, you really need to focus on finding that mentor. You really need to focus on who do I resonate with, and how do I just join them in that thing?
Yeah.
And
how can I work for free for them is what I would say.
Great story. Here's a great story. We mentioned Tim Ferriss earlier. I have this person who I met once. His name is Charlie Hone. We went to a cool event together out in Colorado, and he talked about how he became Tim Ferriss's apprentice. And I think this is genius. He literally wrote Tim an email saying, like, subject line, like, hey, free, like, something really tactical, something really like, I'm giving something to you. No ask, no, I need this from you. Something like really like you want to open up this email. Here are 3 things to improve your book launch. Because Tim was about to launch The 4-Hour Chef, I believe. Okay, so he was already famous. He already had like New York Times bestseller and all that stuff. Literally writes an email with 3 things. He says like, hey, I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to optimize this thing on SEO on number 2. And then the third was like something that he basically like literally did.
Yeah.
And then he wrote at the end of the third thing, oh, by the way, I already did it. Here's the results.
Yeah.
Tim hired him, and like I don't know if he paid him right away, but he took him on as an apprentice immediately. Why? And it's because he led with value.
Yeah, he had value to give him.
And that is everything about. You want to be an influencer online? Lead with value.
Yeah.
start with value, build a community. I was speaking to somebody this morning who was like, I really want to be the next Prince EA. I'm like, great. When's the last time you made a video? Number one. Yeah. And he's like, oh, do you think I should monetize in this way? I'm like, no, I don't think you should monetize for 2 years.
Yep.
I think you should keep your job.
I literally say 2 years to every single person as well.
They shouldn't monetize for 2 full years. Yep. They should literally be building community. You should be getting more people in your ManyChat and your Facebook groups and your email list. Those things all matter to some degree, but get them there not to sell them something or to give them something that, and by the way, I have to learn this. Like, I built a massive school, and I focused on like the monetization of that school. Really, I focused on, it wasn't even focusing on the monetization. I focused on how can I get it to a point where I actually think it's valuable. Yeah. And then from there, how am I going to drop the price down to the floor? And that's exactly what I'm going through right now. Mm-hmm. How do I allow that to be the case? And then at a premium price, it's a fairly reasonable price, then I sell access. Hey, you want to come and learn from me? You want to do a mentorship with me? Great, that costs me money. Like, if I want to do this on a yacht in Croatia, it's going to take, there's cost of doing that. But it's the fastest way. Yep. It's also the fastest way I can teach people. So, and it's really not even to teach people. It's the fastest way I can get them to actually do the thing. Yep. And be accountable to doing that thing. Because they put enough resource and money and energy on the line. Because you wouldn't have taken Hal Elrod's advice seriously had you not been paying him the $500 a month. For sure.
You have skin in the game. And so I had to get my money. I had to be making more money out of it or more value out of it than I was spending. And so that was the thing is that happened with me was I said, okay, I could figure it all out on my own. And that would take years and years and years. Or I could hire a guy who was the youngest person in the history of the company to hit $500,000 in sales at 21. And I thought to myself, so that, there's Hal and his best friend, John Berghoff. John Berghoff was the one who hit, I talked to Hal once a month and I talked to John once a week. And John was, when he was 21, hit $500,000 in sales, which means that by the age of 21, he had made $250,000 selling Cutco. And this was, 15 years ago. So that's even more money than it is right now. And he also had the record for selling $70,000 in 2 weeks. And you make 50%. He made $35,000 when he was 18 years old in 2 weeks. And I was like, all right, I'll pay this guy to get some knowledge from him, And then so literally, I think that, and I've told this many times, the best decision I've ever made in my life was investing that money into myself. Because I am a completely different person. Like I said at the beginning of this interview, I was somebody who was raised where my father wasn't around. I never actually had a father figure or a male mentor to look up to. But then what happened was, and I come from, the city that I come from when I was there was actually the highest underage drinking per capita in the entire United States. And I know many people, it's actually the opioid capital of Florida. Many people, when I was 19 years old, 18, 20, 21 years old, that overdosed. I literally just had a friend that overdosed about 3 months ago actually. Wow. And so I could have gone that route had I not made the decision to actually be serious about my life. But instead I went, all right, I'm gonna invest in myself. And by hiring 2 guys who were already successful and at a young age, they were only 25 at the time. But that took my life in a completely different direction. I could have been a different person had I gone, yeah, but I just don't have the money at this point. And I didn't. I put it on a credit card in order to be able to do it. And it paid off.
Same thing. I paid $1,000 a month to my first coach.
Yep. I've made millions of dollars off that $500 a month decision.
Literally.
Yeah.
The best investment I've ever made is making those $1,000 a month decisions that turned into $2,000 a month decisions that turned into $3,000 a month decisions. Yep. And I still pay tons of people to do the thing that I already know how to do sometimes. Yep. But it's not the point, is that you're sharing because other people have other perspectives. Even at my level today, even where I'm at today, these people are coaching me, there are mentors in my life, there are books and things that I can read, podcasts, documentaries, whatever it is. All of that stuff has affected me in a positive way. Maybe we should wrap up just a little bit, but the one thing that I would love to let you kind of end this on, let's say, is, we talked about what are some of the things that they should invest in. What's somebody listening to this at home, they're thinking about getting into this, they're thinking about being the next Rob Dial, let's say. Yeah. what's that one last piece of advice? Maybe that we didn't hit on.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't kind of touch
Ooh,
it.
this is good. And I want to, which one's the close-up?
Direct camera.
This is the direct one. Okay, you ready? Because this is it. Okay. No matter what you do in your life, people are going to judge you. There's going to be haters. I literally had somebody tell me, send me a message today that said, Rob Dial, fuck you, you piece of shit. Right? And I'm putting positive messages out onto the world. And no matter what you do, there's going to be haters that are going to hate on you. And the reason why you're not starting is because you're fearing that rejection, you're fearing that judgment that you know eventually is going to come to you no matter what you do, because there are so many haters out there, right? The haters will be there, but what you need to know about a hater is a hater does not hate you. A hater hates themselves because they cannot be as authentic as you, right? A hater does not hate you. They are projecting their hate for themselves onto you. And so for you, if you have value to give this world and you're not giving it because you're afraid of being judged, then you are being selfish, because you could change somebody's life. Even if it's one person's life, it's enough. You could change one person's life today by putting up something that you believe in, and you might get haters, but somebody else might read it and it might change their life. And for you to not put that up on the internet or put that up somewhere is selfish. And so you're worried about judgment, which will do nothing to you. You're worried about rejection, which will do nothing to you. That is selfish to be worried about those things when you could put something out there that could change one person's life. And that's all that you should be focused on. Don't focus on changing 1 million people's lives. Don't focus on making a massive difference in the world. Just focus on making a difference. Big, small, doesn't matter. If you change one person's life, then your journey throughout the rest of your life is worth it. And that's why I think every person should try to go out there and put themselves out there and stop worrying about the haters and stop worrying about judgment.
Ditto to everything he just said. See you later, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.